Let's start the meeting, please. A quorum being present, this meeting of the Special Service Area Number 61 Hyde Park Commission is called to order. As required by the city, I need to state that pursuant to the applicable law, and my determination that attendance by remote means is necessary because an in-person meeting is neither practical nor prudent due to the declared public health disaster caused by COVID-19. This meeting is conducted via video conference. This meeting is also being recorded and will be posted on the SSA website shortly. So thank you all for taking the time to come out and join us tonight, especially those of you who attended our community.
Fasten driver seatbelt.
Again, thank you. The first item of business before we get to comments is the minutes that were circulated for September 28th. The minutes went out on Friday. Hopefully you've all had a chance to review the minutes. Do we have any corrections or comments on the minutes? All right, there being no comments, then the minutes are accepted as circulated. Thank you very much, Ramon. Afterwards, if you do see something that needs to be adjusted or updated, please let me know and we will address it. The next item of business on the agenda is comments from the floor. The city tells us to do this at the beginning of our meeting. There is a 3-minute limit for talking. I do have the clock on my screen, so I am timing. And remember that our guests are not allowed to speak during the rest of the meeting, that the rest of the meeting is reserved for the commissioners. Are there any questions, comments, suggestions, or whatever from any of our guests who are joining us tonight? Okay, I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. So I'm assuming that means there are none. In that case, we will proceed to financials. And the first part of our financial report will be by Isaac Green. Isaac, you want to take over?
Absolutely, absolutely. Diane, can you share your screen?
It's done.
Okay. Alrighty. So hope everyone is doing well. So your financials for SSA 61 at the end of September 30th, 2021 and 2020. Total cash in bank is at 117.
Can you share your screen? It's not coming up.
I was saying, can you share your screen? Because I'm not in a position.
Yes.
If there's a problem, let me know. I've got it also. There we go.
Can you see it,
Alrighty.
Isaac?
Yep, I sure can. Thank you so much, Diane. Alrighty. So total cash in bank is at 117 compared to 139 this time last year. The reason why it's lower is because we have more activity this year compared to last year. We're still a little bit quarantined as it relates to doing activities outside. So cash is down just a little bit. And then we just have our accounts receivable that's offset by our deferred revenue of 281. So total assets at 398,615 compared to 420,762 this time last year. Accounts payable is at 8,092 compared to 4,660. The deferred revenue is at 280, and then we had just a small 4,341 that's due to the SECC for their administrative services at the end of September. So total liabilities were at 292 compared to 397 this time, 327 this time last year. Coming down to your net assets, this year, you're looking at a total of temporary net assets of 63,000 compared to a negative net assets of 32,000 last year. A net surplus of revenues over expenses of 42,000 compared to 125,000, and that's primarily all related to no activity in 2020 due to the pandemic. So your total net assets is at 106 compared to 93,000 this time last year. So your total liabilities and net assets is at 398,615 compared to 420 this time last year. So stop right there and see if there are any questions as relates to our statement of financial position. Okay, if not, then we can go over to the statement of activities, budget versus actual. All right, thank you, Diane. So total collections is at 203, 387 compared to 317. In that 317, we have a carryover amount, which is a non-cash amount that relates to excess taxes collected in the prior year. And I believe that's around 40,000 for your budget. I do know that we have collected in the past month of October, I believe it's an addition of $48,000. So that's putting the organization in a pretty good position. So total revenues is at 203 as of September 30th. Any questions with the revenues? Okay. Coming down to your expenses, category 1.0, customer attraction, looking at a total of 40,000 compared to a budget of 88,000. And if you look at what's remaining for the next 3 months, you have 47,000 that's remaining. Coming down to 2.0, you spent a total of 71,000 compared to a budget of 115. And so you have a total of 43,000 remaining for the rest of 2021. Sustainability, we have not spent anything in that budget category. So that means that we have a total of $9,000, $30,000 that's remaining. 4.0, economic business development. We have spent anything in there, so you have $5,000 to spend. Public health, you spent anything in there, so basically have $10,000 there to spend. Coming down to 6.0, management, you spent $13,000, a budget of 22, and you have another $9,000 to spend. Coming down to personnel, you have 35,000, budget of 45, so you have another 9,700. So total expenditures at 160, budget of 317, so you have another 156 to spend. So total revenues less total expenses bring you with a net surplus of 42,000. So I'll stop right there and see if there are any questions for the budget versus actual.
No questions from anyone? We will talk about some of these numbers in more detail in the budget tracker in just a moment. Great, thank you very much, Isaac. We appreciate that. It, I think, clearly shows that we have our work cut out for us to spend money. We will be talking about that as the evening goes on. Any other questions about our financial report before we move to the budget tracker? No? All right, well then I will share my screen. Hopefully you all received the email I sent out late this afternoon. I was sitting down looking over at all the handouts that got sent out last week, and I realized that the budget tracker that went out was the September budget tracker, not the October. It ended in August. So I sent another one late this afternoon. If you did not check your email, you should have an updated budget tracker that goes through September and that includes some of the income for October, because I think it gives us a more accurate picture of where we are at the moment. Let's see if I can get into it. Just 1 second, please. Okay. I know this is small and hard to read, but most of the details are not terribly important for us at this point, and you should all have this document, because taking a step beyond what Isaac was showing us, I've added a little work column. This is just for my own use out here at the edge, but I thought it would be something that the commissioners would like to see. These numbers in yellow and orange out to the edge are the income that we've received in September and October. That in these 2 months you can see that we've received well over $100,000 in additional income. So that our total year to date, including October, is 294,977. So that's 93% of what we had budgeted for. That's a lot better than we anticipated. They had told us to anticipate a $60,000 shortfall, which is why we have these large amounts in things like sustainability. That 30,000, we thought, okay, if there's a $60,000 shortfall, this is money we don't have to spend. We put it on the budget so we can reallocate it if we need it. So, but it looks like we're in much better shape than the city had projected for us. So as we'll talk about a little later in the meeting, we are working on a spend down plan for the end of the year, and Diane will go over that in some of the detail again. We talked about it in our last meeting. I thought it was very good news, and we did get confirmation from the city that we are allowed to do another carryover without it having any impact on the amounts that we've already carried over, that we can carry over up to 25% of our budget to next year if we need to. So we don't have to spend everything by the end of the year, that we can do another carryover, and that will give us an additional fund to work with for next year. So the only thing that I always think that's really important about the budget tracker is the bottom line, and of course that's down here at the bottom where we have our year-to-date total expenditures versus our actual budget versus what we budgeted. We've spent 51% of our budget. I mean, here it is. This is the end of September. The numbers are through the end of September. We've spent 51% of our budget, and that leaves us with 156,000 or 49% of our budget remaining to be spent in the last 3 months. We have ways of doing that, of spending this down some. We know we've done a rough job of calculating out the required expenses that we know are going to come in during the last 3 months, and so I think Diane and I feel pretty confident that we've got a handle on this and how to spend it down, so that by the end of December we don't lose any of this money back to the city, that we can either carry it over, we can down prepay for upcoming expenses, or we will spend it on things that we have decided it should be spent on. So the actual number really is a total of 156. We know there's going to be about $75,000 worth of set expenses between now and the end of the year. And we know that there'll be a 7% drop in this because there probably won't be any more assessments, although Ramon reminded me that we have had deposits as late as November. So we will see if there's any additional bank deposits that come in. It makes it very difficult for planning. We already have a carryover next year of 36,000, but that's okay. That does not count against our ability to carry over 25% of the 317,000 to next year. So I think we're overall in good shape. It would be nice if COVID would go away and we could get back to spending money more freely and supporting things. We are coming up with ideas about how to do some activation in the last 3 months that hopefully will be both safe and enjoyable for the neighborhood. And for next year, since we hope to have a nice big surplus, we're looking at several projects that might put a little special tweak into the neighborhood, like as we discussed at last month's meeting, the whole placemaking concept, things we could do to really help the area stand out. So, any questions about the budget tracker? Great. Well, thank you all very much for that. If you do, if afterwards you're looking at this and it doesn't make sense to you, feel free to email me for an explanation. I'll be happy to try to fill you in on anything additional with it. Diane, would you like to talk about the spend down plan?
Sure, I'd love to. And Isaac, you can be dismissed if you
Isaac.
lose, or you can stay. As consultants' time, we want to be mindful. So our spend down.
Thank you, Diane.
We have been making a lot of progress. So October financials will look different. We have projected obviously about $75,000 that we'll be spending on regular expenses based on the budget tracker. But then that if we were to spend the full 156, that would be another like 80,000 that we will be spending between now and the end of the year. But we know we're going to carry over some. So we have the lovely task of doing all that planning and getting everything prepared. Some things that I can confidently say that are already happening and have happened. Not sure which things have hit the financials, but I am in the process of, it's an ongoing plan. So I'm just keeping up with it as it's rolling. We are finalizing, and this will also go along with my program report. So I hope that we can just roll it in together, George, because I don't need to report twice.
Right.
The website RFP, we are in the draft form right now. Once it's finalized, we do have a ad hoc committee for the website of Greg Gutman and myself. So once I have that final draft ready, I'm going to send it to him for review, and then we'll be releasing it. What that is to develop right now we have our downtown Hyde Park website that we really want to bring up a little bit more user-friendly, similar to the Hyde Park Cares website. So we are going to migrate all of that data and have a new and fresh look. So our goal is to have that released in the next probably week or two, and then have a person in place that will get that website updated. Some other things that we are committed to is, as we have talked about in other meetings, is our Shop Local campaign that we do every year to drive foot traffic to businesses and shopper and consumer incentives. We have that on the books already in process. Another thing we're doing is a digital shopping guide that is focused on service-based businesses and retailers. So we're working on that in duality right now. Those were things we've discussed and approved at previous meetings. We will be swapping out banners on the side of Aloy's, as well as thanks to Hyde Park Bank, who has graciously given us permission to continue using the banner locations on the side of the drive-through. So we will be coming up with 2 different style banners for the 2 different locations based on the need. They will be banners that will stay in place throughout the winter and then be swapped out again in the spring with our farmers market campaigning. And then other things we're looking at is our Hyde Park holidays. We're looking at some holiday decor. I've got some emails out for estimates on putting garland on some of the poles throughout the footprint. A commissioner mentioned to me they've never seen garland and bows on poles in Hyde Park before. So, hey, why not? So we're looking at an estimate to see how realistic that is, because sometimes those costs can be much higher than you ever expect. Other things we are committed to, we did order the fencing for the United Church of Hyde Park. I believe that will be installed this Friday or Thursday or Friday by Clean Slate. So there will be a small installation bill coming from them. Other things we're looking at is some brand placement we've already completed with that postcard mailer, and streetscape at Kimbark Plaza is complete. We have a second round of power washing that was to be done, I believe, last week, but maybe the rain has pushed it off, so we need to follow up with that vendor. And we will be installing 1 trash can on the northwest corner next to the United Church of Hyde Park. As some of you may know, in our last meeting, we talked about our 2022 planning and looking at some of the transient populations and how we can better serve them and include them in our community. That corner gets a lot of that traffic, so we want to add a garbage can to help with litter in the footprint. And then some other things we've done is that we are working on updating our online directory of businesses, and we did hire a consultant named Natalie Wright, who came out of the SECC's Young Professional Advisory Council. She is a Hyde Parker, and so she is working on getting our database updated in duality of getting businesses signed up for Shop Local. So if she contacts you, be aware who she is. And some other things we're looking at is we do have an RFP out right now for the murals that were shown in our earlier meeting at 55th and 53rd Street on the southeast side of the viaducts. And we got 15 RFPs for that. So we will be reviewing those RFPs. We have a small ad hoc committee of myself, George, and Mary, as well as our intern, Mia Thomas, who has been very helpful in getting some of these RFPs drafted. So then the three of us can put our touch on it and get those out. So we will be reviewing them this week and making a selection on artists. Then we'll be meeting with the artists to come up with our concept along with their vision. And the goal is to have both of those smaller mural locations complete by Small Business Saturday, so we can maybe do a press conference and talk about the holiday shopping season. So be on the lookout for all of that. So that's just a little bit of what I have going on for the SSA right now that we plan to implement, as well as a carryover. Now, some of you may ask or be thinking like, why do we have so much money? Well, because we were late on spending in the beginning of the year because we were told to budget a $60,000 shortfall for tax collections this year due to the pandemic. By the grace of our businesses, people pay their taxes and we don't have a shortfall this year. I think we're gonna have about a $10,000 shortfall, which doesn't really affect us as much. So that kind of gives it just a nutshell explanation of how we're spending money currently. I am tracking all of these things. And then another small ad hoc committee that's related to finance will be kind of reviewing everything to make sure like what can we transfer over, and we'll be rolling into 2022. I guess lastly, my last update is about the hiring of a SSA program manager. George, you mind if I just keep going into
go right ahead.
And then we will go back to the agenda. Okay, yeah, so program updates and then program manager RFP update. And then George, you can talk about the community meeting recap again. The program manager, we, like many businesses nationwide, we are experiencing employee shortage. We only had 7 submissions. We did 2 interviews. Although we thought one may have been fruitful, unfortunately, it will not be moving to a second interview. I will explain that at a later time, but right now, the SECC has an ad hoc hiring committee. Actually, Jordan Sorrell, who just joined, one of our board members, is on that committee. We will be meeting tomorrow night to talk about strategy and whether we will be reopening the position, having it be on a rolling basis interviews until we find the right person. Our goal is to have the right person in place. We're not going to just hire anybody to fill the role because currently this existing model is working with me managing the SSA and supporting the commissioners. So until we find the right candidate, we're not going to be making any harsh moves. So bear with us and please share it with anyone you know that might be interested in this role that has transferable skills and program management experience.
And a knowledge of the community.
And community knowledge of Hyde Park and the surrounding South Side.
And who's outgoing and hardworking and takes initiative. You know, and wants the job for the rest of their lives. So, you know, isn't got to move on after 2 years. So,
yes, we definitely are looking for someone that's looking to stay for a little while and perhaps build their career a little more with us in terms of the SSA and the SECC at large. So moving back to George.
Thank you very much,
Questions
Diane.
of my report?
Yes, questions for Diane?
I have a question. Well, I have a concern. The Halloween activities, are we supporting any kind of way of doing anything with the Halloween activities this time
Sure.
around?
So there are no formalized events this year for Halloween. The SECC and the SSA have taken the stance that we are not a safety or violence prevention organization. However, we are supporting some musicians this year who are doing pop-ups and playing music throughout the footprint, both on Saturday and Sunday nights. Last year, they did that as a pop-up on one night and did prevent some violent interactions by diffusing by being there. And so we're going to support the musicians through the Hyde Park collaboration, which is the activations of neighborhood blocks. We did, just so everyone knows, we did invite both 4th and 5th Ward aldermen to this meeting. 5th Ward has a ward meeting at the same exact time happening right now. I did reach out to them again today to remind them so if they had any reports for us. We also reached out to 2nd District Commander Wallace and invited him to this meeting, or one of his team members if they wanted to share with us their strategy on community policing and safety. We don't see them on the line. If they would join, we will allow them time to share with us. But my understanding is that there is a police safety strategy that's been used similar to past years, where they have visible public safety on the ground in Hyde Park, throughout Hyde Park, not just the SSA footprint, because there is large trick-or-treating that occurs around between 55th and 57th streets, as well as foot traffic on 53rd Street. So there will be police presence, but then they also have this model where they kind of ripple out. So that way it's not all concentrated on 53rd, but are available within the immediate area. And that similar strategy worked the last 2 years. Also, weather was very inclement in past years, so hopefully that will also be a deterrent.
So you haven't heard anything about any threats of, any riots or anything like that?
I have not, and I have not heard of any formalized parties. I know in past Promontory had a teen party. There is no teen party scheduled. There are no formal activities after, some of the newer commissioners may not be as aware, but for a few years, SECC and SSA took a role in helping plan activities and trying to think of different ways for intervention and prevention. We're big on intervention and prevention, but unfortunately we are not youth practitioners, nor are we public safety. So we have to stay in our lane. So what we will be doing is tomorrow there will be an e-blast going out to our business list for the Hyde Park SSA, and reminding people of social distancing, public safety, adequate staffing, increased foot traffic, and what to do, call 911 in case of emergency. And that we do put out a statement every year.
Thank you, Diane.
Yep.
Charles, I would add to what Diane is saying that the university's Vice President Heath sent out a very useful email blast to the community this morning with advice on how to handle Halloween. And the SSA the SECC will be sending a comparable announcement out tomorrow to their email blast list. I also know that we've been talking a lot with the folks who are putting on collaboration, the community neighborhood groups that are around, trying to offer support. They seem to have everything under control. They have not asked us to do anything, as far as I'm aware, beyond show our support. I have very quietly mentioned to several different parties that the SSA does have a budget for paying for security if that became an issue, and no one has. And I explained that we had not allocated it in any way, with the idea that it might be useful for Halloween or some other event, and no one has requested any financial support or help with this. So we're just sort of sitting
So
here.
those funds are being transferred to events by helping support the musicians.
Yeah.
At this juncture.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, I have a suggestion on another topic, which is spending, another thing that we might be able to spend money on. On 53rd Street in front of the 5252 building, we've lost one of the flower baskets. So this might be an opportunity to replace that one.
Oh, good. Those things are ridiculously expensive, so that's a good one to know about.
Thank you, especially because we will be working with our vendor, Clarence David, for the winter floral, and they are also the company that I sent asking estimate on the whole garland. So I will be having correspondence with them very soon.
Great.
Good. Any other questions?
I think the winter floral typically goes in mid-November.
It usually goes in when it gets cool, but didn't look like it was ever going to get cool this year. So today feels a little more like autumn. Any other questions for Diane from anyone?
Wait on it, George. It's coming.
It's supposed to be warmer this year than the average.
Let's hope so.
I'm not complaining either way. Whatever comes,
Either
it
way,
comes.
right.
All right. Then moving on the agenda, that actually takes care of our program updates and our program manager updates. I had listed that we would do a report on the prior community meeting. Most of you actually attended the meeting. Thank you very much for coming out for that. Just to recap, there was one thing that was useful about that meeting to understand. I will not make you all watch the PowerPoint again, but this one slide was the whole reason behind the meeting, that the city requires when there's a change in your equalized assessed values that's over 5% that you must have a community meeting. We realized, looking at this year's budget, that last year we were requesting amounts that only came to 0.6364 of 1%, and our minimum cap is supposed to be 0.65. So this year I said, why don't we raise it? Let's raise how much we're asking for, and let's get it up to 0.65, which is where we're supposed to be at. So we did. Little did we know that that would trigger the requirement to have a community meeting, because we went from 272 in 2019 to 273. That was the 0.22% increase, but raising it to 0.65 elevated us from 273 to 295. We got a $22,000 boost out of that, but it meant there was an 8% rise in our EAV, and that triggered the community meeting. So hopefully we have met our obligation with the city. We've explained this budget, talked about how we spend the money, how we arrived at the numbers, and how we tend to put it to use. And I think that meets our requirement going forward. So let me.
Yes, and it's important to also point out to everyone that we have no control over the EAV. We are given that by the city.
It means our neighborhood real estate values also went up, which I suppose is a good thing. So I don't suppose it is a good thing. So any questions about the meeting tonight? I think most of you were there. Thank you again. The last thing on the agenda, see, I said a short meeting tonight. The last item on the agenda I have is the meeting dates for 2022. That document was circulated. I think I found another error in it, though. I was looking at it this afternoon, and December 14th is a Wednesday, and we meet on a Tuesday. So it should be December 13th. This year it's December 14th, but next year it should be December 13th, Tuesday at 11 o'clock. So if everyone would make that change. Were there any, I know Mary had caught some corrections earlier, thank you. Were there any other corrections, or are there any questions about our proposed meeting dates? We're basically following the same schedule next year that we have this year, which is every month except February and November. Not in February, because nothing ever happens in February. We don't get income, and we're recuperating from the prior year. And November, there's so many holidays and not much is happening there except our program activity. So we're also scheduling 2 evening meetings. So again, for those who find it difficult to attend during the day, during the work hour, we have March and we have October, the same as this year, for our evening meetings. Other than that, I think it's pretty consistent. It's always the fourth Tuesday of the month. Questions or comments about any of these dates? I checked and I didn't see any conflict with holidays anywhere. Good, and we will consider that our published schedule with that one correction for December, and we will.
I made the correction, so I will send that out.
Great. And that should also go up on the website, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, with this stuff. All right. So that brings us to the point in the meeting where we accept questions and comments from the commissioners. Is there anything anyone would like to bring up or talk about? I will bring up that I ran into Wallace Good from the Chamber of Commerce this morning, and he reminded me that they're going to have their grand opening. I believe it's next Thursday. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's next Thursday morning. You know, they've taken over the space in the Hyde Park Bank building on the ground floor that used to be the travel agency, Spinelli's travel agency. That's now the Chamber offices. And Thursday morning, I believe at 11 o'clock, will be their grand opening. Ribbon cutting with champagne. So a little early.
I think it's later in the day.
Is
George.
it later in the day?
Yes, in the evening. Yeah. So we're not having champagne that early.
And they had a meeting after that in the bank building. Maybe, yeah. I know it was early.
Yes,
this
it's like
morning.
part of the chamber check-in, which is
Chamber check-in.
first Thursday of the month.
Yeah,
And they'll do a toast and then they'll move to the bank building.
upstairs. Yep.
Okay, good. So if you all know Wallace, you know the chamber. Stop by there and say hi. It's a nice space. It's like he has the front window of Hyde Park sitting there. Everybody walks by the bank building at some point during the day.
And then with the event, make sure if you're vaccinated, you have to bring proof of vaccination or a negative test within, 72 hours. The whole routine. So
Good. That's good to know. Thanks, Eric.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay, our next scheduled meeting will be December 14 at 11 o'clock. That'll be our final meeting for the year. We do not have a meeting in November. And if there is no further business and no objection, then this meeting can be adjourned. And I will wish you all very happy trick-or-treating and also have a very happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you again in December. Thank you all for coming out tonight.